Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and today we're going to take a look at my Game Week 31 team selection. So a lot of our decisions in Game Week 31 is going to hinge on Manchester United players, so I am recording this just after Manchester United have released a statement, and also Ten Hag has spoken to the press just before the Sevilla game, so that we get more information on Marcus Rashford, and I can show you guys a very likely team that I'm going to line up with in Game Week 31. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and if you do, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. So as usual, very quickly I'll talk a little bit about how I did in Game Week 30. Now I am just into the top 100k by the skin of my teeth, right? 99k, right? So I jumped into the top 100k. I'm very happy about that. I am now 22 points away from the top 50k, so I think I can push on to try and aim for that, and that will be the new goal for the end of the season. There's only 8 game weeks to go, right? So I'm going to have to capitalize on every game week and make use of all my transfers very wisely, right? So for this game week, I scored 63 points. Kepa in goal, 3 points. Didn't manage to keep a clean sheet against Wolves. As a Chelsea fan, I was pretty disappointed that Chelsea did not get that, I guess, new manager bounce. I know Lampard was our manager a couple of seasons ago, but I still think, right, that there is something more in store for this Chelsea team, right? I think that they will bounce back. It's just that this loss against Wolves honestly isn't the best way to go, right? But hopefully we pick up from there. In the defense, there's Trippier and Botman, the double Newcastle defense that didn't pay off because of Ivan Toney's penalty. Now, I want to speak a little bit about Zuma because he definitely deserves some airtime here. Zuma with 6 points, kept a clean sheet against Fulham. And when you add that to his Game Week 29 score of 12 points, I think I can say that Zuma has been my best transfer in, right, across these 2 game weeks, and I'm really happy with Kurt Zuma. Of course, I did get a little bit lucky with that goal against Newcastle, right, but I'm really pleased that I have Zuma. I think his time in my team, or his job in my team, is done now, right, because in Game Week 31 he plays Arsenal. I'm very unlikely to play him. He's probably going to be on my bench, right, but I've gotten enough points for him. I think he can hang up his boots for my team, right? And then in midfield, there's Maddison, Rashford, Mitoma, and Saka. None of them returned except Marcus Rashford, who got an assist, right? So of course Marcus Rashford is now red flag, so we will have a whole section on Manchester United later on after this section, right, to talk a little bit about Marcus Rashford and also Luke Shaw, who is on my bench for Game Week 30, and he is yellow flagged, as we already knew before the Everton game. Now, lastly up front, there's Ollie Watkins, Harry Kane, Erling Haaland, all returning. Of course, Haaland with that 12-pointer against Southampton, so really happy that I went with him and also captained him, because obviously there was some doubt about whether he would start this game, right? As for Harry Kane, scored a winner against Brighton as well. I did think that Spurs were a little bit lucky to get that win against Brighton, because Brighton played really well, and they also had 2 goals chalked off in that game, right? So it was a heated encounter, but I think to walk away with 9 points, Harry Kane, I'm happy to take that. And also Ollie Watkins with a last-minute goal against Nottingham Forest. So this is how I did for Game Week 30. Let's quickly take a look at some Manchester United quotes before we take a look at my Game Week 31 team. So because most of us are going to hinge our decisions on the fitness of Marcus Rashford, maybe less so Luke Shaw, right? But we definitely want Luke Shaw back fit as soon as possible, especially for the double Game Week 34, right? So we're going to take a look at some quotes in detail about these 2 players. And beside me, I also have the fixture ticker for Manchester United, so that we can see the landscape of their fixtures moving forward. So let's cover the first quote here, and it says, subsequent assessment of the injury suggests that Marcus Rashford will be unavailable for a few games, but is expected to be back for the season run-in, right? So this isn't a quote, but rather it is a statement from Manchester United themselves, right? So once again, interpretation of this quote is completely up in the air, right? Firstly, unavailable for a few games, right? What is a few games? I mean, that is completely up to your own interpretation, and it's so funny that at the end of the day, we are going to hinge our Game Week 31 decisions on our own interpretation of what a few games is, right? So, of course, the statement goes on to say he is expected to be back for the season run-in, But honestly, expected to be back for the season run in it could be after game week 34, it could be just in time for game week 34, it could even be game week 33, right? So nobody knows, and the sad thing is that we have to base our decisions on this quote or on this statement, right? So to shed a little bit more light, Ten Hag gave a little bit more information on Marcus Rashford's injury during the Sevilla press conference. So basically what he said on Marcus Rashford, and this is a quote from Ten Hag, it's a setback, he's disappointed, but he's not totally broke because he will return quickly. Now, once again, up to interpretation, how quick is quick, right? So he will return quickly is all we know, and he started his rehab, and that helps to get back soon, right? So based on these two quotes about Marcus Rashford, my own interpretation of it, which is completely guesswork, is just completely what I feel is going to happen, right? Is I would say that a few games probably means he misses both Sevilla games, because I would think that the immediate Sevilla game, which is on Thursday the 13th of April, will definitely be too soon. I would say the Nottingham Forest game as well, and then I think he misses the second leg of the Europa League clash with Sevilla again, right? So I think those three are definitely out of Marcus Rashford's capabilities there, right? But I think beyond that, Brighton, Tottenham, and Aston Villa, right? Brighton, of course, is the FA Cup game. Tottenham is the game week 33 game, and Aston Villa is the first game of double game week 34 for Manchester United. So these three games here happen on the 23rd of April, the 27th of April, and the 30th of April. So my own interpretation of it is that there is a chance, right, that he returns in any of these games, right? Brighton, Tottenham, and Manchester United, and Aston Villa, right? So that is my own interpretation. It's complete guesswork, right? But from an FPL perspective, I think about when I would need to use Rashford, or when I would want to start Rashford, which is something that you guys should consider as well. For my team, I just need him back in time for game week 34, which is double game week 34, right? So if he is back in time, 30th April, that is, right? There is essentially 17, slightly over 2 weeks, right? 17 days until the 30th of April, right? So can he recover in time? I think it is possible, right? And something else I will have to consider as well, right? And the sad thing is we have to decide this now, right? Is whether he will play that 2 games in quick succession in game week 34, right? So the first double game week 34 game for Manchester United, as I mentioned, is Aston Villa on the Sunday 30th of April. But 3 days later, they play their next double game week game, right? So this quick turnaround is also something that we need to consider, because will Ten Hag start Rashford in both of these games in quick succession when he returns from injury, right? Say he returns in time for the Tottenham game, they definitely want him to play that one, and then possibly he would play the Aston Villa game as well, right? And will he play 3 days later? It's completely up to Ten Hag, and there is a risk that he may miss out there, right? So I'm gonna leave it at that. For Marcus Rashford, I think that we will have to sadly make a decision on our own interpretation of it, and I am interested to know how you guys interpret it as well, because what I'm saying is complete guesswork. Nobody knows when he'll be back in time. If anyone tells you, then obviously they're lying, right? But I want to know what you guys think, and how you interpret this quote, and when you think he'll be back in time, and thereafter how it affects your transfer plans for game week 31, right? So lastly, let's quickly touch on Luke Shaw, because that one is pretty straightforward. So Erik ten Hag was addressing Luke Shaw and Garnacho's injuries, right? So he said both are not available, and this is referring to the Sevilla game, which is happening very soon, right? Thursday the 13th of April. It probably would have happened by the time you're watching this video. But he says definitely the injury of Garnacho is more severe, but I expect Luke Shaw back on shorter notice. So I think based on what I'm hearing from Ten Hag, I'm very confident, or at least I'm very positive, right, about Luke Shaw coming back soon, right? And I think he will definitely come back in time for double game week 34. I can't say for sure, I can't say for certain, but I think I'm pretty confident he will be back based on what Ten Hag is saying, right? So Luke Shaw, definitely a hold for me. I know some of you guys were thinking about selling Luke Shaw for maybe a City defender, but for me, he is a hold this week, right? As for Rashford, it's completely up to you guys. I'm not going to recommend whether you should keep him or whether you should sell him, but for me, I am going to keep him. As I mentioned just now, I only need him in game week 34, right? So as you guys will see later on in the team, right after this, right, he will be on the bench, right? So I'm gonna leave it at this, right? You guys can have a look at the codes, take a little bit of time to interpret it, and take a look at the fixtures here right beside me to see the fixture run in for Manchester United as well, and make your own decisions, because at the end of the day, nobody knows when Rashford will be back fit. So finally, we can get on with my team in game week 31, and this is how it is likely going to look, right, for game week 31. So 0 free transfers left, meaning that I would probably use my 1 free transfer. I haven't locked it in yet, but this 1 free transfer is James Maddison out for Bruno Fernandes. Now, some of you guys may think that this Bruno Fernandes move may seem a little bit weird, especially since Bruno Fernandes is coming off a couple of blanks when we expected him to return when we brought him in earlier on, right? But the way I see it is Casemiro is coming back. Now he's back from suspension. Eriksen as well, he is also back, right? And that would definitely push Fernandes further forward. And now that we know that Marcus Rashford is going to miss a few games, Fernandes is definitely going to have to step up further front, right? And he's definitely going to have to create more and also possibly get more goals and score some goals, because he is probably the next best attacker for Manchester United. So they're definitely not going to want to play him in that number 8 role. That's the way I see it. And I definitely see him in a more advanced role, and that is where he really thrived, right, early on in the season when we definitely wanted him, or we thought he was a great FPL asset. So Bruno Fernandes comes in, right, and this is how he would fit into the team. He basically takes the place of James Maddison. What I've done is I've moved Marcus Rashford last on the bench as well. As I mentioned, I'm keeping him. Luke Shaw, I think it probably will come too soon, this Nottingham Forest game for him. But obviously, if the press conference right before the Nottingham Forest game says that Luke Shaw will be fit, then he obviously comes in for Estupinian, right, who's currently in my starting 11. And then last, the third player on my bench is also Zuma, right. He's first on my bench because he is the only fit player, outfield player that I have on my bench, right? So sadly, I don't have any real good bench options this week, and the starting 11 kind of picks themselves, right? The only real decision I had to make was to start Raya ahead of Kepa for obvious reasons. The fixture is better for Raya, but aside from that, I'm just going to start these 11 players and Captain Haaland. I think captaincy is going to be pretty close. I think Harry Kane is a decent shout, because a lot of people are targeting this Harry Kane Bournemouth fixture, and that's why they've kept him. So I think he is a decent captaincy shout, but I think for myself, I don't think I will look away from Erling Haaland, especially in the form that he's in. 1 goal and 1 assist against Bayern Munich, and also 1 goal and 1 assist against Southampton over the weekend that just passed as well. So I think against Leicester at home, he's probably going to get more returns, definitely. I think Leicester have been struggling, and they have appointed Dean Smith now, right? And the way I see it is I'm not too excited about it, and maybe they defend a little bit better, right? But I still do think like Manchester City are too strong for them, especially Erling Haaland. So the hope is that he starts this game, because he did play 90 minutes against Bayern Munich midweek, right? So hopefully he starts this one. He's going to be my captain, right? And as for some other players that I just want to mention in my starting 11 is the Brighton players. So Estupinian, I'm starting him simply because I don't think I will start Zuma ahead of him, right? And the other 2 Brighton players that I want to talk about is Mitoma and Solly March. Now, ideally, I wouldn't want both of them to be playing against Chelsea and be in my starting 11, but I think that keeping Rashford, not going for Grealish, and then playing Solly March could work as well. I think Brighton have looked really good in attack, especially in recent times where we've had so many headaches choosing which Brighton mid to go for, right? So the best part now is that I can start both of them and have good reason to do so if I want to keep Marcus Rashford, right? So that's where I'm going to go with the Brighton mids. Up front, as usual, Kane, Watkins, and Haaland. And just one player that I want to mention before we wrap up this video is Saka. Now, I was quite hopeful that Saka would get some returns against Liverpool, right? But sadly, Andy Robertson kind of snuffed him out a little bit, and the joy was more on the left flank, where Martinelli really did very well, right, against Trent, who kind of came into a new role, right? A inverted fullback role, and I think that kind of gave Martinelli a little bit more freedom there as well, because he was dealing with Konate there, right? But Saka against West Ham, I am quite hopeful that he will return. Of course, the usual stuff like he's on penalties, etc. But West Ham will be playing, right, in Europe a couple of days just before this Arsenal game, and that obviously plays into Arsenal's hands, because Arsenal are out of Europe, they're out of domestic cups, and they only have the Premier League to focus on. So a well-rested Saka, I'm hoping that he will outscore players like Martinelli, because obviously, right, Martinelli did really well, and he kind of hurt my rank a little bit as well. Initially, I was 87k, but because Martinelli scored 13 points, he kind of dropped my rank to 99k. So I'm hoping that Saka makes up those points and doesn't make me regret not going for Martinelli instead. But that's it. This is how the team is looking like for Game Week 31. Hopefully this video was comprehensive enough for the Marcus Rashford situation. Let me know what you guys are doing with your teams and how you interpret that Marcus Rashford situation. But for now, that is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. And I will catch you guys in more Game Week 31 content. Hopefully I will get one more video out before we have the deadline stream, 3 hours before the deadline on Saturday, right, as usual, right? But yeah, that's it for this video, and I'll catch you guys again soon. Bye bye.